Oreland, how are you? It's been a while.
I'm doing well.
Yeah, I have Oreland Joe today here on my podcast, and one of the people I've been wanting to get up. I've gotten your son before I got you, one of your sons. So Bojo was on. I think we did two. Bojo and I think we talked for like 2 hours, a long time. He had such um, interesting story. What have you been up to?
Lately, um, just writing a lot. I got my first episode and half of my one of my relatives on my Ute ancestry, a warrior that was called Yellow Nose.
Mm-hmm.
I've done 10 years of research on him,
Wow.
about 450 pages of undocumented, unpublished works from research from Oklahoma, Montana, stepping on both sides of the fence. The
He's Ute.
Yellow Nose was his name.
Yeah. What was his tribal affiliation?
Ute.
He was Ute.
He was a full Ute, but was adopted, or when captured, was adopted as a Southern Cheyenne.
Mm.
So, but he grew up all his life from 8 years old to the time he died in 1904. No, 1926.
Mm.
He lived among the Cheyenne, and the last phase of his life, he was a medicine man.
Mm.
So he's got about 24 phases of his life, all the way from being captured to the highlight is his participating in the Little Bighorn Battle of 1876, capturing the 7th Cavalry flag.
Wow.
So that's the pinnacle of his being a warrior.
Wow. So he was there at that battle
Yes.
in 1876. What was that, June 25th or something like that?
Yeah,
right?
June 25th, 1876.
And so he captured the flag, the 7th Cavalry flag.
Yes.
Yeah. And so at that point, he's a young man, obviously, right? He's
Right.
very, very young. So, and when does he go with the Cheyenne? When does that happen? What age was he?
Well, he's captured at 8 years old
At 8.
from the St. Louis Valley in beneath
Colorado?
the east side of Wolf Creek Pass.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That whole valley down there. That was Ute occupation for
Yeah.
way back. Yeah.
And so he stays with the Cheyenne. And when does he rediscover his roots?
He knows it all along. In ceremonies, if you're full Cheyenne, you get to sit on the north side because of all the societies.
Mm.
And at the beginning, he sits on the south side, which is or captured or alien to Southern Cheyenne.
Mm.
So finally, after all these years of research, the Yellow Nose name was very, very hard to find in its meaning. And it was not until my son Bo and I were invited to a traditional Sundance by Merlin Little Thunder back in somewhere around 2014.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't outright say, this is what his name is. I want you to experience it. So we ended up at a Sundance in July of 2014, and just hot as heck,
Yeah.
So the sun during the Sundance wouldn't move, and I swore the sun turned purple, turquoise, bright orange, yellow, white, all the different colors of the rainbow. So from that experience, he finally comes about 7:30 in the evening. He says, now do you know why? He says, Yellow Nose had the opportunity to go home, but keep paying attention. You'll know why he didn't return home, and you know why we accepted him fully as a warrior and as a man.
Mm.
So there are certain things we saw in the Sundance, and finally he comes back later, 2 hours later, and he says, now do you know? And I said, yeah.
Mm.
So we found his name by visual experience, seeing what could have transpired during his Yellow Noses sun dances.
Mm.
Very, very powerful.
I bet.
Different from the Utes. And so we came away with that experience, finally knowing what his name was.
Mm. Through that sun dance that you were going through it with the Cheyenne, it came as a vision.
Yes.
That had to be amazing.
Yeah, it was. It was all the, I think about Earl Biss and
Yeah.
some of those early painters from the Institute of American Indian Arts,
Mm-hmm.
Fritz Scholder,
Canon.
all their mystical paintings. I used to think in high school, looking at magazines, how in the world are they getting to this point?
Right.
And I didn't know until I had that experience with the
Wow.
Sundance. It's going through like a veil. And once in a while, I believe I can do that. The veil is a foot ahead of me, in front of me, and I can reach, even put my face through it and see what's
On the other side.
happening on the other side. And I believe I'm at that point to do that. I've done several paintings, drawings, sculptures that have allowed me to see what's on the other side.
Mm. And that happened in 2014.
14. Yeah.
So that whole time of your life, it took you to that point to get
Yeah.
to the other side.
Well, the research really started in 2013, just curious. My uncle, Rod Grove, who's a Vietnam vet, he's active, very active still with the veterans group.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing a sculpture for them. It was called the Point Man. If you know anything about the war there, it was the blacks or the indigenous people that were sent out first with a dog and a shotgun. If there was a large boom, they knew that he was gone, so they looked around and guess who's brown again, you know?
Yeah.
So my uncle wanted to honor those people.
Yeah.
And so he finally got permission from his commander. I don't know how it works these days, but he was told and acknowledged that we need to honor the Point Man. So I did a sculpture of the Point Man going back and forth. I must have went back to the reservation. I'm about 80 miles on New Mexico side back to Ignacio.
Mm.
So every time I went back, I was told, nope, that's wrong. Change it. This is the way it really is. Talking about the uniform, the guns.
And that was with your uncle, you were asking him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every time I'd go back, he'd squeeze my arm before I left and say, he says, did you look into Yellow Nose? And didn't really, I had not, but I told him I was going to keep researching. So finally, after the last couple of times, after I completed the sculpture, we talked about price, foundry costs and all that. So then he stops me at the door, squeezes my shoulder extra hard. He says, you really need to look into this. He's an artist too, but he was, after a while I learned that because I had gotten my foot into the fine art market, he was serious about using or thinking that I could get a greater audience about the recognition of the Point Men and the experience that Indian people had in the war. So the sculpture is complete. It's in a museum. They want to blow it up larger and larger and make it a full-size figure. I don't know when that's going to happen. So that's how it all began with my uncle.
Where is that museum? Which museum is it in?
It's the Southern Ute Museum in Ignacio.
And so that was your uncle's Ute, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're Ute and Diné.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And you tread both lands, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some things are taboo on both sides of the line, you know.
Right.
Utes believe in certain things, and Navajos don't really mind that, and it's the same the other way around. So I get to linger in both areas.
Yeah. That can be hard too, right?
Yeah, I've been called a few things, but
Sure.
But then if you look at history, and I'm a history buff.
Yeah.
I've got most half of the time I'm doing research or drawings or
Yeah.
history-wise. But I was going to say that they had a huge trade between them. That's why the Utes ended up with the Navajo trade blankets, the striped ones, first phase, second phase.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Utes ended up with Navajo jewelry. So once in a while you'd see the connection there.
And the baskets too. The
Yeah.
Ute baskets and Navajo wedding baskets, very similar.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. And so, where did you grow up?
Pardon?
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Shiprock, New Mexico. But my father, at least twice a month, we were back on the Ute reservation visiting his mother and his sisters. And so I got some exposure out there.
And your mother was, who I met out here, she's Diné?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Diné, and lately she's, I was saying that we do a lot of family history, so she found out that she had her great-grandmother times 5 or 6 was captured by the grandmother when they were twins. The Navajos captured them from out by east of Tufa City.
Yeah.
And took them back to Clavato over the state line. And so my grandmother's mother's mother was Hopi, full Hopi. So now we explore.
Wow.
So every time when we get time, we go through Hopi, and we have, do you know Lauren Willis out there?
No.
He's a Hopi carver.
Oh, yeah, I know who that is.
I used to booth next to him when I started in 1990 over at Indian Market.
Yeah.
So we became good friends. And we just did a trade, and I was thinking about conjuring up a painting about this between a Hopi and a Ute.
Yeah.
And I'm going to call it corn trade. So what they wanted was, well, I was there a month ago, and I wanted Hopi blue corn because it represents their corn dance. The real blue corn.
Yes.
So some of it comes like a ultraviolet blue or a cobalt blue, you know.
Yeah,
so,
I've seen it.
So he had a whole barrel of it. So he gave me his best ones.
Nice.
So I, in turn, his niece saw what was going on. She says, "Okay, I want some red pomegranate colored red from you guys." So we just dropped that off on our way down.
And so you'll plant the corn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Santa Clara has blue corn too, but
Yeah.
it's a different corn from the Hopi.
Yeah.
They grow, I think Hopi they grow longer. Santa Clara is just a mid-range in length. It's mid-range.
And probably it needs more water, probably, that Hopi corn. You don't have a lot of water out there.
Yeah.
So how did that make you feel? That must have been very, I would say, almost shocking in a weird way to find out, because that's, your heritage too, that you have this Hopi component of your background too that you didn't know about.
Yeah, I keep the lineages, ancestry separate for now. I think one day I will do a collaborative piece, but no, I'm not crossing any lines right now because I'll get chewed on.
Yeah, I understand. But you're a man who can walk those trails because you've done it your whole life.
All right.
So I would think I could see it, you being able to do that. It helps if you have already had those internal discussions in your mind many times.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sure that does happen, right? I mean,
right.
How could it not? It should happen. Yeah. You get the bounties of both worlds, now 3 worlds, really, in an interesting way. And so you grew up in Shiprock.
Yes.
And you'd go with your dad back to his reservation periodically on the weekends.
Yeah, actually, it was the whole family that went.
Everybody would.
My mother and my father met at the Indian boarding school there. So
in Shiprock?
No, in Ignacio.
Oh, in Ignacio.
So my mom already had friends there, some of my father's relatives. So when they went back, it was a whole 2 days of visiting my grandfather up there.
So they went to Indian school. When was that? Was that when they were?
Probably the 40s.
1940s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was their experience of Indian school? I mean, they met each other, so that was the good part. But
Yeah.
do they ever talk about
I
it?
believe it was positive.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom experienced. Well, my mom was a product of. I shouldn't say product, but she went to school at Intermountain School up in Brigham City.
Oh, yeah.
So that came to a phase, and so her parents realized that she had to go to school. So there was, Ignacio was the only agency school in the area, so that's where most everybody went. The Apaches, the Navajos, the Utes.
It must have been something throwing all those different cultural
Yeah.
people
Well,
together.
my mom says that in order to get from Baklavato, which is near Tisnasmus,
Yeah.
it was a 2-day trip for her grandfather in a wagon from Baklavato to cross the river, sleep somewhere between the San Juan River and Toyac,
Right.
gather up, drop her and her sister off, and make his journey back all the way, and he would arrive back into Baklavato at night.
That had to be very, very hard
Yeah,
for both him and for them.
yeah. So she says that they, both ways, either in Ignacio Ute Mountain at school or Ignacio, it was took a lot of time, and she said sometimes kids would wait for parents to come for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and sometimes nobody came.
Yeah.
So
You also have to know when that is.
yeah, so she was in that situation for a few times.
Where they didn't show.
Yeah. So well, anyway, it was a good. She came out to be a good parent for me.
Yeah. But trauma when
Right,
you go through
yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah. I met her out your mom out there. She's lovely. Yeah, she has a beautiful smile, and just you can see the joy in her face and her eyes. Yeah, she's very good.
And she's still a good driver.
Did she do the driving?
We take turns.
Yeah, that's funny.
Let me back up. In 1980, I had my first breakthrough show
Yeah.
in Taos. I can't remember what the gallery's name was, but it was Mark Swazo Hines, it was Raleigh Grambois,
Yeah.
and there was another painter and myself. It was like a 4 or 5 man show. And that was my first showing ever outside the Four Corners area. So I about begged her. It was during Shiprock Fair, and I wanted to go to Shiprock Fair. She wanted to go to Shiprock Fair, but it was that Saturday night. So we saw the parade at Shiprock, and then we gathered together and we took off for Taos. And couldn't afford a hotel, so did the show, had some finger food, and buzzed on home. We must have got home about 2 or 3 in the morning. So she supported me. If there's one person, it's my mom. She supported.
Wow.
I just hope my father didn't get to see a bit of success from my career. He passed on early. So she's been with me this whole time, worked at IHS in the administration for a while, and recently retired 2 years ago. So she found herself doing nothing. So I said, jump in, let's go.
Me.
You can still drive. So she likes to race the semis on I-40.
Great.
She's still good. She's still got some good sense in the library and active.
Yeah. Well, and she had you. I know you have 2 sons that I know of because I've interviewed them as one of them, and Iram's going to be with me.
Right.
Do you have any other brothers or sisters?
I have one brother, Orville, who lives in Los Lunas. He's a sculptor. Well, he's multimedia. He's kind of everywhere, jumps on everything.
So everybody in your family is very talented because, I mean, you do draw. I mean, you're known as a sculptor, but you also now maybe have transitioned to being more known as a painter or drawer or whatever.
Right.
You did silversmithing too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the first thing you did, right?
Yeah, that came from after I had a surgery on my hand, my right hand. It was a pinched nerve was what it was. So during my recovery, I got bored. I didn't know what to do. I could draw some. I couldn't paint because of the large wrap on my wrists.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a incision, had like 4 stitches. And so I got bored, and I thought, what about casting? Because my father used to, actually what happened was I moved to Kirtland, which is 25 miles from Shiprock,
Mm-hmm.
going east, and built the home there, got my studio going, and had my hand surgery. And so no one was at my studio, and about 5 years prior, my mom had brought this box. I knew what it was. I wanted to stay away from it as much as possible. I said, I can't.
It's calling you.
I knew what it entailed. I knew what he went through with that. It didn't bring much money. I knew, you know, and my mom would get upset, like, you know, why didn't you find a regular job, a real job?
Right.
And I've been told the same thing too.
Right.
Actually, before I got married, my father-in-law used to say, I don't know about this art business. It's like fishing, you know. After you catch the big one, what do you do?
Yeah.
And so he encouraged me to work at the APS power plant, you know, and I told him right there, straight across the table, I'm not meant to be a coal mine worker. I'm more gifted than that.
Right.
And actually, I did have an interview at the power plant. And it's a great big guy from Shiprock that I knew. He said, just like we're sitting here,
Right.
he says, Oreland, you don't need to be here. You got better talent. You have better things to do. He says, I'm not going to hire you. So I went my income.
Yeah.
So I went out the door, and I gathered myself about a day later, and I put my foot down, and I said to myself, I'm going to become this artist person. With gold in my pocket or a few pennies, I'm going to do this.
How old were you?
About 19.
You owe that man a debt, really.
Yeah.
He helped you push you along. He saw it somehow.
Yeah.
He knew it. And he probably could see it in your eyes, and your heart wasn't in it, and you were being kind of doing it for your father-in-law and trying to support the family as to make him happy. But the reality is you've always been an artist, right? I mean, you've always done that your entire life, even as a little kid, right?
Yep. Since 3 years old.
Yeah.
Well, the story goes, my mom's better at telling the story that in order to keep me quiet at IHS or public places, my father or her always carried a little notebook pad with a pencil, and whenever I got nasty, they set me down and they draw something, and I try to copy it. So that's my beginnings.
Yeah. And you just kept going and going and going. So you're 19, you get shut down. You can't work at the power plant, which is a good thing. But I'm sure at that time it felt kind of hard because you have a family, right? Do you have kids, or is it just your wife?
I just had Hiram and his mom.
Yeah. So now you have to try to make a living.
Right.
And what do you do?
So I went to, right there sometime, there was one time was a knock on my door. And it was the school liaison, and the guy that catches kids ditching is the guy. So he came over, and I saw him again, and I got fright, like, okay, what did I do? I've graduated. How do I help him or ask him? He says, the superintendent wants to have an interview with you at the Title IV administrator, one of the bigwigs. So I got myself together. The interview was 2 days later. I went down, cleaned up, got a haircut back when my hair was short.
Yeah.
So I went down, and they offered me an illustration job, which included drawings for textbooks, creating elementary age textbooks. So I took the job. I stayed there for about 3 years, just about. And then I was finding myself wanting to come down to Paradise Valley or Carefree to do shows. Indian Market came into the picture right about then, 1983.
You're drawing primarily at that time?
No, I was actually sand painting.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a probably a 5-year history in sand painting.
Mm.
And I sought out the local, the best sand painter. That's one thing through my career is I've always sought out who's the competition here.
Mm-hmm.
And in Shiprock, it was my relative Eugene, that's Oreland Joe, and he still is the best. Nobody can touch him.
Mm.
So I started in Shiprock. When they hear Oreland Joe, don't let him learn your craft, is basically the word, because it only takes me 1 or 2 experiences to catch it.
Mm.
So my former in-laws are from Tisnospas, and I used to drop the family off and I'd head for the hills north of Tisnospas. Natural color sand,
Mm-hmm.
sandstone, all the way from purples to yellows and
Yes,
browns.
beautiful up there.
But you can't find, I was trying to think, where did I find the chrysocolla? Oh, it was at a local land and garden shop.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned to get turquoise and blue with a mixture of chrysocolla and brown, so it makes, you can get a light blue or a little darker blue using black sand. So I had my venture for a good, I think in all my mediums, it's attaining or satisfying myself to get that best of class, to make a set a goal of, you know, will this be a $25 painting or will it be a $5,000 painting? And somebody, I used to play in a band too, and the manager of the band, he pulled me aside one time and he says, "Oreland, do you want to make nickels or do you want to make dollars?" And I said, "Of course, dollars." And he says, "Get it together. You're only going to play in this band for a few more months." And he says, "Get your art together. That's your bread and butter."
Mm.
So I did that. I took his advice and I started going to shows. And I was talking about Eugene Joe. He actually told me, he says, "There's nothing here for you. Go and explore. Go to other shows." And about the same time, I went to the Institute of American Indian Arts.
Mm-hmm.
Pawned everything. Got my little Mazda loaded up. Went over there. Stayed there for a whole week. Well, actually 2 weeks. I finally found a place to stay, and I thought, well, my family can come here too, going through the Indian education scholarships with the Utes.
Right.
And so I found a place, went to school for a week. Just between you and I, it was Doug Coffins, that was my instructor. And smelly studio, raw meat, bones. And I don't know if you know his technique, but you know, they go out and find bones, dead cows, and just try and strip the meat down.
Mm-hmm.
Right after that, spray paint the ribs and the skull and screw them into the pole. And then lo and behold, you got a piece of work right there.
Yeah.
So I didn't care for that. I wanted an anatomy structure, muscle structure, the representational,
Right.
the real thing.
Right.
So after a week, I realized I didn't belong there, and I had this feeling before, like, do I need to be here? I'm not learning anything. I want somebody to basically whip me in the back and say, "No, do it right." And about the same time, searching, where can I get this training? Where can I get this education? And I waited 2 years to get into a Ned Jacob workshop, a drawing workshop and a painting workshop. The drawing workshop came first at the Scottsdale Artist School, having to wait for almost 2 years. And Mimi, I don't know if she's still working there, but she was the first one that called me. She says, get in Oreland now, register. So I got in, and man, he was a mean teacher.
Yeah.
And but I came out of there being a better.
Yeah, I've heard that before. People really
Yeah.
learned a lot from that.
Yeah, and then the following summer, hired me as an assistant in one of his Taos workshops.
Oh, wow.
4 colors of paint, just the primary colors, and he made ladies cry. I mean, you had to do a full painting with all colors with 4 tubes.
Right.
And that was very hard. I was confused because I had never had that experience before.
Right, I'm sure.
So today, when I paint, I started out as, you buy the whole set of oil paints or acrylics, the full set that has every single color in it.
Right.
And I also taught my son Hiram, every time, and we started out with him with a full set too, but then he went to the school, Mesa Community, and the instructor was just black and white. That's why he's so good at drawings.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he got
really is.
drilled. I mean, he said, "Dad, I'm coming home. I don't like this guy." I said, "Well, some things you have to just swallow and just
Right.
keep going." But eventually, he mastered black and white.
He did.
Then he went to painting after that. But in all these, so I went to Italy the following year because I believed, and I can be told wrong, but I didn't feel there was no qualified stone sculptor in America. I really believed that. So I used to get magazines all the time, and at the back page there's all these ads. So I found this ad in black and white that said workshop in Italy. So I signed up for, I remember, $2,500 or something.
Which was a ton of money.
Yeah. So I thought, this is my only chance, and I talked to my mom about it, and I said, I'm going to be gone for a while, and she says, you may never get another chance to do it. So, let me back up just a little. So I was working at Title IV, being an illustrator, and I got comfortable at going to shows once a month at least. I knew there was going to be more. So working with the school district, you only get a emergency leave for X amount of days.
Right.
So I began to slowly write my excuse letters of, like, I can't come in today, I have a cold.
Right.
I'd call in, and so after half a year, my supervisor called me in, and she said, Oreland, you're not really sick. She goes, I know what you're doing. She says, whenever you're ready, just give me a 2-week notice written, and we'll release you. So I couldn't last no more than 3 more months, and I wrote the letter and I resigned.
Yeah.
In good terms. So that's what took off. My art took off after that.
So you got that, you quit, and did you go directly to Italy after that?
Yes.
And was that the impetus? Okay, I'm going to quit, and I'm going to this class in Italy.
Yeah, I got things with my family, my art, my sales. I wanted to get X amount of money with sand paintings and paintings. I need this much. I'll leave that with my family,
Right.
and I'll go, and just to sustain myself, just what I needed, So when my companion, my buddy was Alvin Marshall at that time, so we both studied in Italy. And there came a time where we both ran out of money.
How about?
It was a little town in Lake Como. I can't remember the town's name. Small town, just really big on salami, cheese. The best bread in the world.
Yeah.
The size of a baseball bat.
Right.
So we had an idea, and I said, hey, I only have about $60. What do you have? And he said, about the same. So we conjured up an idea, and he says, well, let's, before we get to the workshop tomorrow, the workshop was right there at the villa. So we could just step on out, go downtown, get some fresh meat, whatever they had, fresh bread. And we didn't have a fridge, but we had a big closet. So he says, what about, And I knew what he was going to say. I said, yeah, let's do that. So I bought the long piece, cut it up, just, wrapped it tight and
Right.
just set it in the closet, for our clothes closet. And that was our meal for about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Just little slices of salami.
Yeah, and bread and water or juice. So, so we got through.
Yeah.
He had the same training I did.
Wow.
But in other mediums, I learned to, even today, with painting, and between you and I, the only other person that I've shared this with, besides my mom and my Hiram, is there's a gap, Mark. I was talking about Earl Biss, T.C. Cannon, John Nieto, R.C. Gorman, Fritz White. There's a gap somewhere of a painter that needs to take that space. And I've studied all these guys. The only person I got to meet was Frisch Older.
Mm.
The rest of them, and Alan Hauser, of course. But the rest, I just admired their work like crazy. I'm still looking for a John Nieto book, the first edition,
Mm.
and then his last one too. I'd like to go to one of his exhibitions. But so as far as goals, I would like to fill that space. I don't know how, what, when, and all the time when I set a goal, it's like, okay, what's the next step? I don't know, nothing. Help me, Lord.
Mm.
And so he's guided me this far. I trust in him, and always receive a paycheck somehow to get through.
Well, I think you filled the gap. I mean, you're one of the most successful, well-known sculptors working today in native imagery. So, I mean, you're there, right? I mean, you've done it in not only stone and bronze, but also on paper and canvas and all that. I mean, you filled it.
Yeah. So backing up to silver.
Yeah.
During the time I was healing my wrist, I got bored and I just sat there. I kept thinking. I brainstorm a lot, especially between 2 and 5 in the morning. Ideas just flood me, and I can't sleep after that. So my father had a relative, Jimmy King Jr.
Mm-hmm.
He was a silversmith that lived about 10 miles down the road. So I began to question. Well, I stopped by and he greeted me as a relative. Came in, had some coffee, had a piece of bread, and then he finally said, "Why are you really here?
Yeah.
You're an artist. You want something. What do you want? What do you want?" No, he says, "What can I teach you?"
Yeah.
And so I said, "I'm really curious about tufa stone."
Mm.
Didn't even know what it was. Just had a small scrap piece.
Right.
I did cast that little. I can't remember. It was a pendant or something. Just enough to get by.
Yeah. Dollar size. Yeah.
He took me outside, and he says, "I don't cast in tufa. I know how, but I'm not big on it. But I do use the carbon blocks.
Mm-hmm.
They're like 1.5 inches by maybe 10 by. It was the main mold for his. The design didn't change. It was just the main mold. And then after that, after it was cast, he'd cut the silver and then line up the stones inside. Mm-hmm. So for about every 30, and he would probably change the design after 30 casts. He says, "This is what I use. You can have a piece." So he gave me a piece of that. Mm. But still in the back of my mind, I was thinking 1868, 1890, I want that style. I want that texture in the silver. So eventually, where did I get the first piece there? I had been hunting around, questioning all the guys at Indian Market or Intertribal, and nobody wanted to share information. And then there was Kenneth White, my relative, he's been in Santa Fe forever. He's in the film industry right now. He's the Indian in a movie like Lonesome Dove. He's the first Indian that always gets shot. So he's still doing that. He's doing some good work out there. But he had a friend, I can't even remember her name right now, but he introduced me to her. Then I got to meet her father. And so we went on a lunch date. And I said, okay, I need to find out some things. Your father casts in silver, so do you. I need some help to get started. And it was just like, okay, just hang on there, buddy. First of all, what I said was, you have a husband, huh? And you have kids? And she says, yeah, I do. And that right away shut the door. And then I said, okay, next item of business is tufa stone.
Mm-hmm.
And they live somewhere by Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
And it took about 4 visits with her, just, hi, how are you? And then that kind of a thing at Indian Market. Then finally she says, go talk to my dad. That guy can twist silver like crazy. I can't remember his name, but I talked to him and he says, oh yeah, we know where to get some. He says it's out by south of Gallup, some road out there. You go about 15 miles before you get to Zuni, and then there's just a Jones something road.
Mm-hmm.
It connects back with I-40 way out there by Sanders.
Right.
So I thought, I want to take a chance. So I went out there one day and just, we found it, but it was powder. It was like flour. And so, but then we kept going. And
were you looking for tufa?
Tufa.
Yeah.
Before you know it, we ran into blocks the size of the table.
Oh, wow.
And it was quarried before by the locals, but there was a lady that was upset because she says, that's my stone in Navajo. She says, what are you going to give for it? So I think we paid about $20 or $30, and she let us take, 15 this size.
Of this table?
Of this size, yeah.
Wow, huge.
And I got a picture of Kenneth and I loading. And it's heavy as heck when it's wet.
I bet.
But when it's dry, you can basically lift with one.
because it's porous, right? That's why it works.
So that was the first batch. I didn't know what I really had, so we started cutting it into size. That first 3 months was just silver was running everywhere because I didn't know anything about the venting system.
Right.
I even
Sprue and stuff.
Yeah, I even tried putting a hole from the top and then pouring.
Yeah.
Like the Egyptians did,
Right.
Nothing was working. So backed off, rethought about it, went looking at Aaron Anderson's work over in...
Yeah.
And I actually went to see Aaron one time, and he says, no, Oreland, you're all wrong. He says, this is the way to do it. So he poured right in front of me. Like I was saying, all I need to see is one time or two times. And then after that, it just caught on fire.
Yeah, you knew what to do.
Yeah.
And so were you making bracelets?
I started out with cuffs.
Yeah.
And then rings, anything that could... And I was trying to learn how to solder at the same time. The bezels.
Right.
Man, I had a heck of a time. I burned a lot of bezels off.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then the next thing was stone. Actually, Bo and I started here during the Gem and Mineral Show. We were at on the south side over here. I can't remember the...
Yeah, one of those hotel areas.
Yeah. Actually, it was Arab Run, and we barely squeezed in there. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember the cost of the booth, but we did pretty good.
Oh, you set a booth up, you and Bo.
Yeah,
How old was your son when you did that?
2015 somewhere.
So was he still doing the music gig at that time?
Yeah.
He was still doing that.
Off and on, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was called by the stone and by the silver, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, it was almost instant. Well, backing up, when he came home, I don't know if he told you that he caught pneumonia in Chicago.
Yeah, he did. Really sick.
And I went to his apartment, and I saw black images running around in his apartment. I said, no way, you're coming home. So there was a possession there from way back, whatever that part of town was. So I basically unglued him from his present girlfriend there in Chicago. I mean, it was hard. This lady wanted him bad, and I said, no.
Yeah.
And so we started packing his stuff, and I said, you're going home? And he said, I'm tired, Dad. I want to go home.
Yeah.
So I flew home, got my trailer, went back to Chicago, loaded all his things, and his younger brother, Carlisle, who's deceased now, so he flew up there too. His grandfather put him on the plane, I told him, your job is to take care of Bo, get him back to Albuquerque on the plane. That's your job. So in the meantime, I went up, I loaded my trailer with all his things and drove all the way home with it. But
worried the whole time, I'm sure.
So the beginnings of that is I told Bo, I said, don't do nothing, don't get a job, don't think about school, I just want you to lay, rest, recover, watch TV, just relax, don't do nothing. So he took that, he did that, and then in the meantime he got a old high school girlfriend, and they were seeing each other quite often. And her birthday came along right about this time. And he kept pacing back and forth, going to the shop and to the house, and he said, I really want to get Adrian something, but I don't have any money, and I don't want to borrow any money from you. And I said, Bo, stop right there. Guess what women like the most? Jewelry. And I said, the shop's always been open. Hiram knows that too. Any material, any tools, it's always been open. So he started asking questions. Well, he drew it out. He says, this is what I want to make. And I said, just be real simple about it. She'll love it no matter what, because it's a Bojo piece of work.
Right.
So he made a bracelet. Secretly, I think he maybe went around here, just kind of measured with his finger.
On her, how big her wrist was.
Yeah, so he made it. It was, he championed it. And she cried, I guess, when he gave the bracelet to her.
Yeah.
So then after that, we had our experience here with the jewelry show, and it just caught on fire. But all the time, the greatest need was the grade of silver. That was what he was interested in. And so he got that shop is closed down now, but Monster Slayer in Kirtland, they just sold their land and they're building to McDonald's, sadly, so they're bulldozing everything right now. But that was the best place to go for tools and materials. But he got to know people in the business, and the highlight of his learning was going to the Yazzies in Gallup.
Lee Yazzie?
Lee Yazzie and his brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I called, I know Lee from church from way back. And he says, yeah, I'll just come on by. He's always open. I learned a few things from him. When I started the repoussé work, I don't hardly done it for a while, but he was really encouraging. He started bringing out books like, do this, do that. Because he was interested in it too. So I did a few pieces, and he really enjoyed it. So that was our connection, Lee and I.
Yeah.
His other brother, it was more intricate work, and
very much so.
I couldn't do the small stuff.
Unbelievable how
But Bo was, that's what drew him to his brother. So, and then meeting, what's her name? Verna.
Oh yeah, from Hopi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was another spark. I mean, a big spark. When you get those two together, they'll talk all day.
Bo and Verna?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he learned some things from her too.
I bet.
So it was just little by little, small steps at a time, that he got to know all these people. And Bo is very, he listens well. It's even better when he can physically see the process.
Yeah.
So he catches it quickly.
He's like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sees that he can do it, and he's goal-oriented.
Yeah.
He wants to be the best.
Right.
Yeah, and you see it in his work. Best stone, best everything.
Yeah.
And the best material.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonder where he learns that.
I don't know. I have a funny story. I mentioned briefly that I used to play in a band in high school.
Right.
And I had this nice Fender that I still have, a Stratocaster. So he says, Dad, have you ever thought about owning a 58 or 59 Gibson?
Mm.
And I said, I think my music days are over. And he says, no, let's look into it. So he found one in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and he somehow made a deal with, because that's where he used to live.
Yeah.
So he got to know the store owner there and made arrangements for my birthday to get this guitar.
Wow.
It's a gold lemon. It's got the crackle finish on it.
Yeah.
So so we managed to pay it off, and I have that. Again, thinking nothing satisfies the guy. You know, he's got to have top grade.
Yeah, he doesn't want anything less. That's who he
Yeah.
is. That's good, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it shows in his work. But
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, it's immaculate.
Yeah.
So, and he's working with these people like Lee, Ozzy, and Verma. He's gravitating there because
Yeah.
he knows they're the best. You have the connection of God, actually, with Lee through
Yeah.
church to get him into that,
Right.
that thing. So, and so you're doing jewelry off and on as you're making sculptures too?
I'm planning to.
Yeah.
With the surgery that I had, I'm supposed to be staying away from carcinogenic.
Mm.
I can't even have a real grill steak, the juicy part around the edge.
The good part, yeah.
The good part, I can't even have that. Once in a while I do, when I've been announced that I'm in remission the last 5 times that I went to see my oncologist.
Nice.
So after that, I sneak in a part of a steak,
I don't think that's what that means.
Yeah.
I'm in remission. I get to have part of the juicy,
Yeah.
grilled part of the steak.
Yeah.
Vegetables, maybe. But,
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, health is good.
and so you're doing research
Yeah.
on your relative, and it's yellow nose,
Yeah. Yellow nose.
and he was your great
He.
grandfather.
He's a lot of. This was 1858,
Yeah.
and there's a direct line from him to one of the families in at Southern Ute. I don't know if you know the Box family.
Mm.
They're George Bent's.
I know who that is.
One of George Bent's wife is their grandmother,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I have records of that, of his wives. It's just which one. There was, I think at the most there was 3 wives,
Mm.
and there are photograph evidence too, but they don't notice. They don't have, what did they call me? I had a researcher call me one time from Oklahoma. He's written a book on the White Thunder family,
Mm-hmm.
and there are notes related to Yellow Nose.
Mm.
And so I take his lead sometime, and he called me he said, you may not have a PhD, but all your material is PhD material.
Mm.
What was it called? He gave me and he said the state of Oklahoma recognizes this specific title of being the best person or the most knowledgeable person on a subject matter.
Mm. And that title went to you.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So
Well, you not only have interests, but you also have a connection emotionally, physically, genetically.
right,
You
yeah,
know? spiritually.
Yeah.
I mean, you went through the veil.
Yeah.
Right.
So the next step with that is I'm still writing. I'm gathering research. I'm I'm on my own budget, which means I can only spend 35 to 4,000 on each episode, or every 30 minutes. That's it's $100 a minute for myself. So I'm self-promoting that. And finally, the Ute tribe, is kind of looking over, like, okay, what's he really doing? And so it was a $100,000 offer, and I said, nope, this is 10 years of my life, maybe 10 million, but
Yeah.
you're not going
Trying to bring it to the public through film.
Well, they want to claim it. It's like, okay, Oreland Joe is a member of the tribe. He's Southern Ute.
Yes.
That's all they need. They don't care for how much research time. I'm on my 4th truck. I'm just researching, and the truck's about to go at 180,000 now. So I'm going to hang on to it, and I've decided that I have a lot of notes that need to be edited, and I'm going to I'm going to have 25 chapters. At an instant, when an idea comes, I can scribble chicken scratch while I'm driving, or just to do a quick note and then lose it, or put it somewhere. And I have a lot of those that it's like sketching. You come an idea, and my way of doing it is just a stick figure, and then a date, and then just a little note. Then I can go back to that next month and remember it. So it's the same with writing. I'm not the greatest writer. I still need an editor to cross my T's and dot my dots.
But the content, that's what you have.
Yeah. So
what do you hope to happen with this project that you've dedicated to?
The first thing is to raise funding, just to... I have it all in my head. I can see it run through my head quickly. The first part of it, which is only probably at the most less than 10 minutes, it's just to air it somewhere, get some public interest. And my tribe is really bad at that. I just spoke to the vice president last week, and their museum has I think in the last 5 years they've had 3 executives resign, so something's wrong. And I just told the vice president that there's no interest. We're going to pull off for a while. You guys think about it. You need a consultant or any presentations on yellow nose. You come to me now. I'm not going to chase your tail. The Cheyennes are all excited. I showed them a small clip, just the introduction piece there. They're really excited about it. So I'm supposed to do one of the guys they call themselves the Yellow Nose, something over there in Southern Cheyenne, out of Concho and Camulet, just the smaller communities. So one of the main persons, his mother is the head of the Native Studies program at the university. So when I get it together and when they are ready, I'm going to be doing a presentation there at the U of O.
And have you thought about submitting it to SWIA under the cinematography?
When I feel comfortable with it. Right now, it's got some jagged points. It has to go through editing again.
Right.
So it's comprised of, I call it a multimedia. It's a couple of notches above a slideshow, but I have photographs, I have a little bit of video, I have drawings. A lot of my paintings I use as reference for like a war scene, a battle scene. So all those are going in there. So there's these 3 areas that I somehow I need to overlap them to tell the story. I have another friend who's her name's Verna Solomon. She used to work at, she was the curator with Chuck Daly over at the Institute of American Indian Arts when the museum was still up there.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to know her way back in 1980. So, and I had been looking for her because I had this idea in mind that she'd be the voice actor or narrator.
Mm-hmm.
So after a 5-year search, I just could not find her. Nobody knew where she was at. So I was at Buffalo Thunder showing my prints about 3 before I got sick. And so I heard this laugh from somewhere inside the building. I said, I know that laugh. So I got my cousin to watch my booth, and so I just started wandering around, and I found her, Verna.
Mm-hmm.
So she came to my booth, and we exchanged greetings again. I told her about my idea, and she said, yeah, I'll help you.
Nice.
So she's the voice of the first episode. That's basically storytelling.
Mm.
And so I made reconnection with her. She's just turned 80.
Mm.
Almost as, I think my mom's about 3 years older than her, but they're
Mm-hmm.
when Verna and my mom get together, you can't tear them apart. You know, they're that same age group. So I plan on the short film when, yeah, in time I'd like to submit for, because it's a whole totally, I think people will get blindsided by it because it's a part of history, and nobody knows about them. The young kids need to know about them. I've started a 30-page coloring book that's already done.
Mm.
They're supposed to run 20,000 copies.
Mm.
5,000 going to the Southern Cheyenne, 5 going to the Southern Ute, and 5 going to the Ute Mountain, and 5 going to the Northern Ute.
Mm. That's
And,
cool.
then the casino, because of that experience, now they want one coming from the casino angle, the Southern Ute Casino, which will, since I had my first experience in drawing again, I have better ideas now. So it was like a prelude to something better and bigger.
Do you feel like when you're so deep into this man's life, his journey, which is part of your journey too, do you feel like you channel that individual, Yellow Nose?
I have another friend who's, how do they call themselves? They're psychics.
Yeah.
Judy Pyle and her sister that passed on 2 years ago, and I've sat many a time across the table with them. And the younger sister, she always sits quiet, just looking at her hands.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally she speaks and she says, you have been highly influenced by Yellow Nose. You lived during that time. You saw him.
Mm.
And so there's a place in Judy's home. She owns Rayvac, the battery and the flashlight people.
Mm-hmm.
But she's partially retired. Lives in Iowa and Hawaii, and then her summer home is in Edwards in Vail.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to go up, and there was a stream that was named after me because I always like to go to the creek
Mm-hmm.
and do the blessing down there. So it's called Oreland's Bend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they say there's a little fish in there, but I don't fish the river. I just go there to say a prayer and a blessing.
And so you're on this journey with this individual, Yellow Nose. You're creating, you're healing yourself physically. And what's next for you? Where do you see your next path, Oreland?
Telling stories on film.
Yeah. It's just that simple.
Not just the Yellow Nose story, but my mom and I were just talking about politicians back home, And there's one woman that's a supreme moccasin maker.
Mm.
She only makes them for ceremonial use.
Mm.
She knows the song, she knows the story.
Oh yeah, save that.
So people like that are not in for the money or nationally recognized.
Right. They're
I
doing
would
it
like
for
to do
pure reasons.
2 or 3 combine at the beginning, and then maybe later on, if money allows, to just do a documentary on them.
Mm. You should.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's in my mind, because too many of us we fall under the carpet too quickly,
Mm.
particularly if we're not living right,
Mm.
So I would say that's my, I hope that I'm able to stay on the earth for X amount of years, and the Lord will allow me and to see my grandchildren get to college, help them out,
Mm-hmm.
and just finish a book. I got the first chapter going, so I have 24 more chapters to write.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I know exactly what that
And
feels
some
like.
days you don't want it. It's just too much. So do other things.
Yeah, like anything.
Yeah.
Like creating a sculpture. I'm sure there's
Yeah.
days that you did not want to go into that studio, but
Yeah.
knew you had to.
Yeah.
Same with writing, I think. There's days I don't want to write, but I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but I have
2 words. Anything.
I have tons of drawing materials that I still need to go through. I mean, just getting to the nitty gritty, why. And this is one thing that my tribe will never understand, is the one-on-one idea of just sitting there alone by yourself, no help, no suggestion, because they don't know. They can try, but they can't know. They won't be able to understand. That's the hardest thing, to be by yourself as an artist and try to figure this out, fight yourself or battle out of the brown bag by yourself.
Yeah. Battle out of the brown bag by yourself. That's
Yeah.
powerful. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think we all have that. I think creative people have it even harder.
Yeah.
We're in our heads a lot.
Yeah, I have my own soundtrack that I'm working on too for these short episodes.
Yeah.
So that's what's in the mix for me.
Yeah, you got a lot ahead of you. You got a lot of work.
Yeah, well, that alleviates me from. I'll still carve stone, but limited.
Yeah.
The mural that I'm working on right now has been a goal, and they approached me, the Mercy Medical Center in Durango. I'm doing a 28 by 30-foot mural with Hiram and my other relative from Ignacio, and then another friend. So I have a team of 4 men. I was going to bring my phone in, but maybe I can show you later.
Yeah, 28 by 30-foot mural.
Yeah, and it's called Healing Ways. It's a, when I met with the executive team, they cater to, I didn't realize this, but they cater to all the way up into Wyoming, the Shoshone, Arapaho, Cheyenne, Hopi, Zuni, Navajo, Apaches. They get clients from Salt Lake, Denver, all over the place, even from Phoenix. And they said they wanted to honor the people with the mural. And so before I got to the state line back into New Mexico, I already had the idea. And
Figured out.
yeah, so our tribal animal symbol, the Utes, is the bear.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the block, the foundation of this whole thing. And
Is this in stone or painting?
it's a painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the bear is sitting there with his legs crossed ceremonially, and he's... so I said, how can I tie 20 tribes together? It's easy just to say design, this is the Acoma, this is the Cheyenne. I don't want that, I want it more. So I thought, what is the core of us, all of us? And it came back to the insects and to the animals,
Mm-hmm.
the four-legged, then the winged beings. I guess from my understanding, in every Harvey, what's his name? Sheldon
Sheldon Harvey
has a great story on this insect world.
Mm.
And so I remembered that. I said, well, Sheldon did this, why can't I kind of borrow it, And so it went to the animal creation story.
Mm.
So that's where the bear just came out quickly. Like, well, the Utes believe in the bear, with bear dances, bear songs.
Right, very important.
Then I thought, what do the Taos people believe in? And so the red fox. So
You went to their spirit animal.
yeah. So
For each
every
one.
tribe has even down to the horned toad, which represents the Navajo.
Yeah.
So so the bear called out a few days earlier, like, everybody, before the white man, before the humans come, we need to set grounds. What land do we occupy? We need a council here. And he asked that if you want to participate in the council, bring your pollen bag or your tobacco bag.
Mm.
So this painting has, by the coals of the fire, each animal has a little pouch, where he's got a pouch on his chest, that indicating I have a piece to say. I have something to say. So that's the concept of the painting.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. Then I have the elk, the horse, the buffalo, and a wolf in there too.
Mm.
So
is that
it's
ongoing now? Are you guys starting it?
It was approved 6 months ago, but through the company, myself, the landowner, the building owner, it's just been a bunch of paperwork.
Right. Is it an outdoor or indoor mural?
Inside.
Nice.
Fortunately.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because it'll save.
Yeah, so we start December 2nd.
Oh, wow. So that's right on. And where is that? What's the hospital?
They have the main hospital probably about 500 yards below the new building. It's a surgical center.
Mm.
And
What city is it?
Durango.
Oh, it's in Durango. Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, the hospital isn't really that old. It's probably 10 years old. But
yeah. That'll be a drawing point for a lot of people, not just those that are ill or need healing or whatever, but art people that want to just go see it. I'll go see it.
Yeah, so that's the next project, physical project.
Yeah, document it.
Yeah.
You should, as a filmmaker, you should document it. I mean, you got the people who are doing it, everything you just told me, you should document.
Yeah. So right now, slash the water issue right now that's going on with the watersheds up in our area.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this, and it actually comes from a prayer. That's a whole nother story. How many hours you got on this thing? Anyway, I translated the Navajo version of this prayer into English.
Mm.
And so the English version is now being translated back to Navajo correctly. And it's being written. So for our water show, our water group show, which is the artist's resistance to what's going on up there. I mean, we're not saying anything publicly, verbally, but it's our stance to say it's wrong what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's in a small miniature show in Phoenix during the Herd Museum show.
Will it be at the Herd?
No, it's called Kaihoyokaya Indigenous Fine Art Gallery. It's a small gallery, but ceremonially I know one of the gallery owners.
Mm-hmm.
So we got together, and so there's 12 artists from our area being represented. Small works. Mm-hmm. Sally Black's got she's got a little miniature basket. Her sister Agnes.
Mm-hmm.
Joe and Eunice and the Ronho, they've got going to have some pottery there. I think Hiram's got a small painting coming.
And that'll be up during the herd show.
Yeah,
but at
it'll be up for 30 days.
Yeah, okay.
There's
And
not a lot of coverage on it. It's just sort of low key, but
yeah,
at least we're
making a statement
something
through art.
Something may become of it. I don't know. There's these things which you spend thousands of dollars, you put up the money, and it becomes nothing. But 2 years later, somebody will say, "Remember that?" And something becomes of it. So I think I'm doing right in that.
Yeah, well, artists do that. Guernica, Picasso, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that was, 38.
Yeah.
It's one of his great masterpieces now, and it was a painting about, looking at the horrors of war. So, and how it'll affect people, and still current today, almost 100 years later. So, all right, you think we got it all out? Did it?
Yes.
You think your mom ate the 3 donuts we brought her? How many did she
I'm pretty
eat?
sure.
All 3, you think?
No, she might have slipped the one in her purse.
Yeah.
My grandmother, when she became at ease with my cousin and I, she would start going back into her back room, her room, and coming out with 3 or 4 bundles of handkerchiefs just tied really neat. And she says, I have this. She wanted to show her valuables. But everything that was important to her, she wrapped in a handkerchief. And that's what my mom might be doing.
Oh, I'm going to go look at that. I'm going to have to ask her, where's your handkerchief?
Yeah.
All right. And then I guess we're done. We can go and do whatever else, other business that we need to do. But thank you very much for coming. I've wanted to talk to you for a long time.
Well, I appreciate the time, and
absolutely.
And you appreciating my art all these years.
Oh yeah, I love your art. You're very talented. Your whole family's talented. So it's a gift. It's a gift for me.